every apartment hides secrets. Some are in the walls, some in the neighbors, and some, like mine, hide behind glass. When I moved into the building, it was raining. The kind of endless drizzle that makes the city look blurred, as if the whole world is trapped behind a dirty window. I dragged 2 suitcases up 3 flights of creaking stairs, turned the key in the lock, and stepped into my new home. The first thing I noticed wasn't the smell of mildew or the stale air. It was the window. Tall, narrow, set into the far wall of the living room. A single sheet of glass framed by peeling wood. At first glance, it looked normal, until I realized it didn't face outside. I walked closer, frowning. The rest of the apartment's windows looked onto the street. Neon signs, passing cars, flickers of wet umbrellas. But this one, no. It stared into blackness, a void. I pressed my face close to the glass. No reflection, no light, just endless dark. A rational part of me assumed it was a bricked-off shaft, maybe an old ventilation tunnel. The landlord hadn't mentioned it, and I hadn't asked. Rent was cheap, and I wasn't in a position to complain. Still, unease crawled under my skin. I yanked the curtains shut and tried to forget about it. By midnight, I was half asleep on the couch, boxes still unpacked. The storm outside rattled the building, wind howling down the street. I drifted between dreams and waking until a sound jolted me upright. Tap. My eyes opened. The room was dark, curtains drawn. For a moment, I thought it was the rain. Then I heard it again. Tap, tap, from the window. My pulse jumped. Slowly, I sat up, staring at the curtain. The sound came once more, sharp, deliberate, like knuckles against glass. I forced a laugh to myself. Probably a branch, or pipes. Anything but what my gut whispered. Gathering courage, I crossed the room and tugged the curtain aside. The window stared back at me, black as ever. But I wasn't staring into nothing anymore. A pale hand rested against the other side of the glass, thin, wrongly jointed. Fingers spread wide as though feeling for me through the pain. And behind it, barely visible in the void, was a face, leaning forward, smiling. I didn't sleep. Not really. I sat on the couch until dawn, the curtains drawn tight, my body trembling with every groan the old building made. At some point, exhaustion dragged me under, but it wasn't rest. It was a fevered half-sleep full of glass, pale ends, and that smile. When sunlight finally bled through the real windows, I forced myself up. The window on the far wall still waited behind the curtains. I avoided looking at it. Maybe it was a dream, a trick of exhaustion. I'd moved, unpacked, barely eaten. The brain plays games when it's tired. But when I finally dared to peek, the glass was spotless. No handprint, no fog, just darkness staring back. Still, unease clung to me. The day dragged on. I unpacked, brewed coffee, tried to settle in. The building was quiet, too quiet. Thin walls, yet I heard no neighbors, no footsteps above or below. Just my own shuffling and the distant drip of rain through the gutter outside. Every now and then, I found myself glancing at the curtains. My stomach nodded each time. By evening, curiosity gnawed at me. I stood in front of the window again, phone in hand. If it was some bricked shaft or storage space, maybe my flashlight could cut through the dark. I pressed the light to the glass. The beam vanished into black. No reflection, no bounce. It was like shining into an endless pit. And then, movement. Not outside the glass, but inside the reflection. For 1 second, I swore I saw my own face staring back. Only it wasn't moving with me. It smiled. I didn't. The phone slipped from my hand and hit the floor with a crack. By the time I scrambled to grab it, the reflection was gone. Only black glass. That night I nailed the curtains shut. I told myself it was paranoia, anxiety. But at 3:12 a.m., I woke to the sound of them moving. Not the wind, not the building. The sound of fabric being drawn aside. And from across the room, I felt it. Something watching me. I woke up, gasping. Not because of a nightmare, because the room was cold. Colder than it should have been. My breath bloomed white in the air as I sat up. The curtains, the ones I'd nailed shut, were swaying, slowly, like fingers brushing along the fabric from the other side. I forced myself to crawl off the couch. Every creak of the floor felt like it echoed through an empty cathedral. The nails I'd hammered in were still there, but the fabric was no longer flush with the wall. Something had slipped in between. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands. 3:17 a.m. The city outside was dead silent, not even a car horn. I flicked on the flashlight and aimed it at the window. For a moment, the beam cut nothing but black, and then the curtain moved, not like fabric caught by wind, but like someone pressing their face into it from behind. A pale outline bulged forward, cheek, jaw, smile. I stumbled backward. My heel caught a box and I nearly fell. The flashlight's beam trembled across the living room ceiling, and then the sound started. Knock. Not a tap this time. A deep, heavy knock. Knuckles against glass from inches away. Knock. 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 The smile pressed harder into the curtain until it showed through. And then, right by my ear, though no one was in the room, a whisper slid through the air. "Why did you cover my window?" The voice was thin, like paper tearing. Male, female, impossible to tell. I bolted for the door. My hand hit the lock, twisted it, yanked. It wouldn't budge. The knob turned, but the door stayed closed, as if held from the other side. Another knock. Louder. This time, the nails on the curtain strained. One popped out and skidded across the floor. The pale hand emerged from the gap, just at the fingertips at first, impossibly long, feeling for the air. The smile was still behind the curtain, stretching too wide. I backed into the kitchen, eyes darting for anything. A knife, a phone signal, a plan. The whisper came again, closer. "Don't leave. It's your turn to watch." The room swam. My vision blurred. I grabbed a kitchen knife and held it out, though my arm shook like paper. Another nail popped. The gap widened. The hand reached further, pale skin slick like porcelain. And then, silence. The curtain sagged back into place. The gap closed, only darkness. I stood frozen, knife still raised. My ears rang in the silence until the refrigerator hum came back, and the air felt warmer. My phone buzzed in my hand. A notification. One I didn't send. Photo saved. Window JPG. I opened the gallery with trembling fingers. A photo, taken just seconds ago, from my phone's camera. But not of me. Of the other side of the window. The pale hand. The smile. And behind it, rows and rows of faces pressed to the glass, all staring at me. Morning came too fast. Or maybe I never slept. I just sat there, knife in hand, the photo still glowing on my phone screen. I deleted it, but that didn't matter, because every time I closed my eyes, I saw those faces, dozens of them, pressed against the glass like moths, desperate for light. When the sun finally rose, I almost cried with relief. Daylight felt safe. Daylight meant it couldn't happen again. Right. I threw open the curtains on the normal windows. The city outside was alive again. Traffic, chatter, kids splashing through puddles. Normal life. But when I turned to the far wall, where that window was, I froze. The curtains were shut tight, except they shouldn't have been. I remembered clearly. I had left them hanging loose after the nails popped out, but now they were neat, closed, as if someone had carefully drawn them shut. I didn't touch them, not yet. Instead, I packed a bag, laptop, clothes, whatever I could grab. My plan was simple. Leave, stay at a motel, call the landlord, pretend I never saw the hand, the smile, the faces. But as I reached the door, I stopped. The air was wrong again, heavy, charged, like static before lightning. I turned. The curtains were moving, not swaying like before, pulling themselves aside. And the strangest thing wasn't the hand, or the smile, or the rows of faces this time. It was sunlight. Daylight was pouring through the window. I froze in the doorway, confusion battling terror. The glass no longer showed blackness. It showed a perfect view of the city. Cars, pedestrians, even the coffee shop across the street. For a moment I thought, maybe I imagined it all. Maybe it really is just a window. Until one detail made my blood run cold. The city in the glass wasn't this city. No pedestrians looked my way. No sound reached me. And in the reflection of the glass, the coffee shop sign didn't read daily grind. It read, watching room. Then, one by one, the pedestrians on the other side of the glass stopped, turned, and looked directly at me. All at once, dozens of blank eyes, every head tilting at the exact same angle, until their necks seemed ready to snap. My bag slipped from my hands. The glass shimmered like water. A ripple spread outward. One of the people in the false street lifted a hand and pressed it against the glass. The same pale skin, the same 2 long fingers, and then another hand, and another, until the whole pane was covered. I staggered back, heart pounding. That's when I realized the reflection wasn't showing another city. It was showing another side, a place where they waited. The window wasn't just watching me. It was an entrance. I slammed the curtain shut. Didn't matter. The light still bled through the fabric, right and wrong, like sunlight from a world I wasn't supposed to see. I tried leaving. I swear I tried. The lock worked this time. The door opened, but the hallway outside wasn't my hallway. The wallpaper was the same, the flickering bulb above. But at the far end, where the stairwell should have been, there was only glass, a tall, narrow pane, and beyond it, faces, all staring at me. I shut the door so hard the frame rattled. My chest heaved, my ears filled with my own pulse. I thought of calling someone, police, landlord, anyone, but my phone. No signal, no apps, just one photo, sitting in the gallery, the one I deleted. It was back, but different this time. The faces weren't pressed against the glass anymore. They were inside my apartment, behind me. I spun around, knife raised. Empty room. Only the curtains. Only silence. I backed into the kitchen, forcing myself to breathe. My thoughts felt slippery, like someone else was moving them around inside my skull. Maybe I was losing it. Maybe the move through the storm, the stress. Knock. The sound came from the living room, from behind the curtains. Not gentle, not curious, hungry. Knock, knock, knock. The fabric shifted, then burst outward, as though from a gust of wind. Nails flew free, clattering across the floor, and the window was open. No glass, no barrier, just an empty black frame yawning into the room. Cold air gushed out. The smell of rot, damp stone, something else, like breath too close to my face. I couldn't move. Then it stepped through. The hand came first, impossibly long fingers curling into my world. Then a shoulder, a head, skin pale and waxy, mouth stretched into that same smile. Eyes like wet marbles, unblinking. It didn't crawl. It didn't stumble. It walked, like it had always belonged here. And when it spoke, its voice wasn't coming from its mouth. It came from the walls, from the floor, from inside my chest. Your turn. The knife slipped from my hand. My body refused to obey me. My thoughts weren't mine anymore. They were watching, and in the far corner of the room, the window shimmered again. More hands, more faces, all pressing forward. The first breach wasn't just one. It was the beginning. It didn't lunge. It didn't rush me. The thing just stood there smiling, as if it knew something I didn't, as if the fight was already over. Behind it, the window frame rippled wider. More figures pressed against the glassy surface, their pale hands sliding through like clay, softening in water. The room filled with cold, the walls dripping with condensation. I stumbled backward, my heel knocking over a box. I grabbed the knife again, raising it with shaking hands. "Stay back," I screamed, though my voice sounded small, thin, already swallowed by their world. The figure tilted its head, lips parting slightly, but when it spoke, the sound wasn't air. It was silence. A silence so heavy it pressed against my skull until my ears bled. And then I understood they didn't need to chase me. The window didn't just look in. It pulled out. The floor lurched beneath me. My vision warped, bending toward the black frame like gravity itself was dragging me in. I clawed at the couch, the walls, the floorboards, but everything stretched away like taffy. The smile widened. The hand reached. Fingers grazed my wrist, cold, rubbery, and in an instant, I wasn't in my apartment anymore. I was standing in the street from the window. The sky overhead was gray, endless, heavy. The people around me, all those blank-eyed faces, were frozen mid-step, every neck tilted at the same impossible angle. They turned toward me in perfect unison, and they smiled. I screamed, but no sound came out, because on the other side of the glass in my real apartment, I saw myself, not thrashing, not fighting, just standing there, calm. I turned my head slowly. My reflection mirrored me, except when I lifted my hand to the glass, it didn't follow. It smiled. It was already me. The others crowded close, pressing against me, whispering without mouths, "Watch with us." And I understood the truth. The window doesn't open to let them in. It opens to let us out. The last thing I saw before the dark closed around me was my own body, back in the apartment, pulling the curtains shut, smiling.